Hey, welcome back to the Zilosophy podcast. Guys, it's a crazy time out there. Sorry, I've been off for a couple weeks, just recuperating in this crazy supermoon and Venus, Saturn, Jupiter retrograde energy. For those people who don't know what I'm talking about, I think I'm crazy, you might want to go back and listen to the astrology episode with Hillary Harley. Anyhow, that's not the point. The point is, I'm back doing podcasts, and I'm not even going to do a long intro. I always say that, and then I always do, but I'm really not. I don't have a lot to promote today. I got a great guest, as I always say, and I always do. Let's see, what are we going to promote? Oh, subscribe. If you're listening, subscribe to the Zilosophy podcast. If you're watching, subscribe to the Zilosophy YouTube channel. Lots of good content coming. Been doing some funny educational videos and PSAs. I'm going to make another one this week for Memorial Day. It's going to be funny, it's going to be poignant, and I hope you watch. If you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you'll definitely get to watch. As you know, Zilosophy on Golf is the book. It's available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. I just gave it to a 91-year-old neighbor across the street who's still playing golf. I almost said yoga because this is a yoga episode, but no, 91, still playing golf. Says he's got no back issues because he's been doing some weird stretching exercises for 30 years. So if you think you got it bad, if you think it's too late, you're wrong. Just go see Brad across the street. Let's see. Let's get to today's. Oh, wait, GoFundMe. There is a GoFundMe, free Zilosophy content for heroes, kids, and families stuck at home. I've pivoted and changed it to content because, like I said, I'm making more funny videos for schools and for mentor programs and anybody else that wants them. So please go support that. Thank you to GoFundMe. They dropped $500 into that fundraiser from their COVID-19 fund because apparently my thing was unique enough and they liked it and they like what I'm doing. So this is partially funded by that. Also brought to you by PokerStars. No, they didn't give me money, but my friends did. One of the ways I've been staying sane is by playing online poker with my friends, sometimes with a Zoom call at the same time, sometimes not. And I've actually made a lot of money doing that to support myself through this. So thank you, PokerStars, for creating that platform. Quite frankly, it's not a great platform, but it's worked well for me. So thank you. Anyway, enough about golf and poker, on to yoga. Today's guest is Liz Padula. You might know her from episode 1 of Zilosophy TV with Uncle Z and Friends, where she played opposite old school Bobby tries yoga, and he tried some wicked, weird poses and stuff. And she was great. She explained a lot about the value of yoga and that. We talk about that in this. We talk about what it's like to run a yoga studio at a time like this and how she pivoted quickly to move things online. Artemis Yoga. Let me get you the website. It's artemisyoga.com. They are in Watertown, Massachusetts, my hometown. Check them out. There's some great online classes, at least a few free classes every week. Sorry for spitting there, but when you listen to the podcast, you'll hear me say, and it's true, that it's nice to do an online video on YouTube or something. It's great. I've done it a lot of times, but it's not the same when you can just pause and you're not connected to anybody. When there are other people there doing it, even virtually, there's an accountability, there's a community involved. So we're going to talk a lot about the yoga community and what it means at Artemis and what it means to you and what the values of doing yoga are during a crazy, chaotic time. So listen up. Here comes Liz Padula.
Maybe it's not too late. Maybe you could make my world a brighter place.
All right, here we go. We're off and running with Liz Padula. As you can see behind her there, let me switch to speaker view. Artemis Yoga. Say hi, Liz.
Hey, how's it going? You want me to reverse it so you can read it?
No, I can actually read it. I don't know why. It usually doesn't work that way, but I can see it. So if it's backwards, just imagine. It says Artemis Yoga. It's in Watertown, Massachusetts, where I grew up, like a half mile from where I grew up, and a studio that I've come to know this year. I started off the year with a yoga challenge for myself. I bought your new student pass and did 30 straight days of yoga, lost almost 20 pounds, and found a great community there. And you've been a big help to me and my mom. We'll talk about that. And so how's things going? Just business as usual, huh?
Yeah, we're going all right, you know. Keeping busy. Keeping busy. We've moved things online.
That's where I want to start. The last time I saw you and Greta, who works at the front desk there, who have both become friends, I was heading down south to come to Florida and then maybe go to Nashville to do some talks that I was booked to do. Probably knew I wasn't going to be there, but thought I'd be here maybe for a few weeks. And we were hoping this thing would sort of pass in a few weeks. We'd get lucky, and no such luck.
Yeah, lo and behold, I think I made a sign on the door that said, "Oh, we'll be back open, you know, March 30th," and that has come and gone.
Yeah, and you still don't know when you're going to be reopened. But you, where I want to start is right there. You're a very business savvy person. We'll get into later your background in Silicon Valley before you did this stuff, which I think is pretty interesting. But I want to start with you making the quick decision to say, all right, we're going to go online. We have to do online classes. Our community needs us. They want to continue to practice. And so how was that? Because you acted really quickly, and I was pretty impressed with that.
Yeah, so, you know, the week before we shut down, things had been slowly ratcheting in, and we had to make classes a little bit smaller and invest in tons of disinfecting wipes and no longer using props. And so every day we saw enrollment kind of go down as more and more people were getting reticent to come out. And at a certain point, you just had to say, all right, enough is enough. We're just going to go online to keep everybody safe, students and staff. And so I was actually supposed to go on an annual ski trip on a Thursday, the 12th of March. Decided the day before to cancel the trip. We closed then Artemis after the 5:30 class on Friday the 13th. And I literally spent all weekend here testing and troubleshooting and acquiring video webcams and lav mics, and just kind of got it up and running. And between Saturday and Sunday, we tested everything, put out a new schedule, chose the Zoom platform. I did have a little help from a student who does videoing, conferencing for a living, Julie Migliacci from Revent. But I had a background also in tech and telecommunications, so I was very comfortable moving things online. And we put out a list of protocols and how-to guides, and we were up and running with over 35 classes starting that Monday, the 16th of March.
Crazy, and really, again, really impressive, because at the time you're thinking, well, we're going to be closed for a few weeks, maybe a month, but still you're pivoting to online classes just to keep going. And also maybe knowing or not knowing, I don't know, you can tell us, but what the backup plan would be if this goes on for months.
Right. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think there's two things, you know, one, protecting the students, making sure they feel safe. I mean, the last thing you want is to feel apprehensive or uncomfortable during a yoga class. It sort of defeats the purpose.
Right.
And, you know, on the other hand, then you have a choice. Are you going to try to go online when there are so many online options out there? But at the end of the day, people want to feel that sense of comfort and ease and see the teachers that they really are familiar with, especially in this very stressful time. So that was really important, to continue to offer something to our community. And then also, you know, the teachers, you know, they're making a living. Many of them teaching yoga full-time or as a very good supplement to, you know, what other forms of income they may have. So, you know, for me, I also felt I have to be able to provide a service so that my teachers can continue, and the front desk, some of the front desk staff can continue to be employed.
Right, because the front desk staff comes in and they set up the Zoom, and then they hand it
Yeah,
over to the teacher.
I like to call them my air traffic controllers. They
Yeah.
they check everyone in, make sure anybody has any audio or video issues, they troubleshoot, and they sort of take that administrative side off of the plate of the teacher so the teacher can just teach.
Yeah. So you brought up something about community, and I was going to wait to get to this till later, but since you mentioned it, I think one of the really cool things about yoga, as you know, I've been practicing for over 20 years, and I get all the mind, body, spirit sort of value out of it. Like I said, it was a great way for me to force myself back into shape at the beginning of this year, which I'm glad I did, because who knew a pandemic was coming and we'd be all sitting around and eating and drinking and not getting out as much, right? But the sense of community, a lot of people that don't know yoga might think that there's some religious undertones or something, right? I'm sure you hear that a lot. And that's not the case. There is spirituality involved, of course, because it's about just connecting with yourself and letting go and sort of going inward and all the stuff that you guys talk about. And I think that that's a great community there. But the one part where it can be, I think, compared to a large religious group is that sense of community. To me, growing up as a Christian at the church right down the street from you, I never really felt that connected to the practices. A little more now as an adult, because I see what I like and what I don't, whatever. But the thing that I always liked about that church and most churches is the sense of community. And I think that yoga studios really provide that. And it's a sense of community of like-minded people who are on a self-awareness exploration and trying to be fit in the meantime.
Yeah. I mean, that was really important to me when I envisioned what do you want it to feel like when you come into Artemis Yoga, and that welcoming approach is sort of first and foremost in the business, and how I want people to feel. I don't want it to feel pretentious or like some exclusive clique. Absolutely the opposite. We want everybody, no matter what fitness level they're at, to have an opportunity to find a place for them to put down their mat. And that's why we have a range of classes and a range of styles, so that all different ages and fitness levels can find something. I mean, like your mom, is different than you, so there's something for everybody, we hope.
Yes.
She is a little bit. We love Janet.
We do. That was one of the great things, to me. One of the reasons I knew you guys were down the street when I moved back to Watertown, but I resisted going there because I thought, oh, that's like an older people. I've been practicing for so long. It's funny how you can, even someone like me who's so self-aware and enlightened or whatever I call myself, right? That like you still get caught in these human traps of thinking about things in a certain way and judgments from afar. And what I found when I went there is that, yeah, it does skew a little older, which is why you've had to be more careful with COVID. But also, like, you don't have, like you said, that clickiness. You don't have the competitiveness. You don't have the fashion shows. The other things that you see in 20 years, I've been to a lot of different studios. And, as a younger single man years ago, I used to go to the ones where there were the most cute girls, right? Like, that was just an added bonus. To me now, I'd rather not have that because it's an added distraction.
We do have that here too.
You do. I shouldn't say that there's no young, cute girls there. It's just not. There are some studios where that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah, no, I know what you
And
mean.
then that can become very distracting, either for them to be competing against each other, or for me to be going, wait, what's going on over there? I'm supposed to be focused over here, right? But I say all that to acknowledge you for pulling it off. That I think that you really did build the community that you were hoping to build, that everyone is welcome, from cute young girls to my mom, who's in her 70s, going to be 76 this Saturday. This Friday. And you've got students there that are over 80.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when you have that parity in age, it's a really good perspective to see where everybody's at in their different stages of life. And some of those people in their 70s and 80s are incredibly inspiring to me to
And
see
in the
what
first,
they're able to do physically and mentally.
Yep, absolutely. And the first couple days too, some of the younger kind of younger students actually on the Zoom offered up, would anybody like me to do food shopping for them? Anybody like me to run some errands? I was blown away by that.
Yeah, there you go. That's the community you were hoping to build, right?
Yeah. So
That's the perfect example of it. Of hey, we can't be together, but we can still help each other.
yeah, absolutely. And
And,
one of the
and
things that we tried to do too was recognizing in this period, some people may have lost their income, have financial difficulties, is offer a couple classes a week that were free for the community.
yeah,
So those have been also very popular.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Right before we came on, I saw a Facebook post by you guys that said you're going to be rotating the times and the teachers of the free classes so that people can experience it. I mean, to me, that, the value of the new member pass when you go, not that you would go 30 days in a row, but even if you go 15 out of 30, you get to try out a lot of different teachers and a lot of different types of classes, and you get to see which ones you click with and which ones you don't. Like for instance, I love the ropes class there, but it really hurts my hands. So it's not my favorite thing to do, but every once in a while I like to do it because it stretches different areas. And then when you get to hang upside down, I love that
It's
part.
fun.
Who's the one French woman that's married to an Armenian? She starts before every class, she hangs upside down.
Oh, Susanna.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. She's really cool that she comes in there and just decompresses the spine before she starts class. So that's the weird thing is I went on, as you know, I've only been on to one class so far remotely because I'm here in Florida. I've got a pool to swim in. I've been playing golf. I'm getting other exercise, and just fitting it in hasn't been the right fit for me. But the one time I did go on, and I saw those familiar faces, it reminded me that, how much I miss those guys and miss being in class. And not that we talk all that much and have deep conversations necessarily. Sometimes we do, but usually it's just minor chit chat. And it's nice to be around those people, right? So, I miss that. And I look forward, and I told them, and I'll tell you now, I look forward to when you guys can reopen safely so that we can start doing that again,
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun, actually, some sort of silver linings with this online in that I had a couple students move away. One young woman moved to Chicago, got married, another moved out to Western Mass, and both of them have come back as online members. So that's been pretty fun. And my cousin comes to my Saturday morning class from San Francisco every week. I mean, I've never been able to teach her before, so that's super fun. And Rahel's daughter from France and her other daughter in Montreal, they all attend their mom's Saturday morning class.
Wow.
So it's like,
Is she as tough on them as she is on everyone else? Probably tougher, I would imagine.
well, I think mothers always are.
Yeah, right. Especially her. She's not to be taken lightly. She's great. I mean, that's the other thing is the variation of different types of teachers that you've built there, but all really cool and really welcoming and really supportive. Is another great benefit. So, we've all been through a really hard time the last couple of months, right? Like no matter where you are, financially, emotionally, physically, we've known people who have passed and we haven't been able to say goodbye to them. People have been sick. We can't go out, all that stuff. So why do you think yoga is so important in the midst of a chaotic time like this?
Well, I think, one of the things that yoga tries to do is keep you in the present moment, be right here. You're not thinking about the before or the future. You should try to be right here on the mat, and some of the exercises with breathing to try to focus in on what's happening right now with your body, with your breath, to try to find a little bit of calm. That's one of the things that I think attracts people to the yoga for sure. It's in a way a live class versus a recorded class. You're a little more accountable because you're right there, and the teacher's kind of giving his or her all right there. So you should kind of too. So that's one thing.
It's easy to pause a recorded class and go get distracted by something.
Yep.
I've done it many times.
Absolutely. And I think, I also think too, just the physical benefits of the yoga as well. We're so tight in our hips because we're sitting at desks more. We're not as open and broad, so we want to stretch across the chest, the neck, the back. Like, I think a lot of people really just want to feel better from this new sort of crunched environment that they're in with working, at your desk all the time and not going to and from work and not really, doing sports and that sort of thing.
Right, right. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, to me, the first thing you said, I think, is the most important thing of yoga by far, of all the amazing things. And we could go on for hours about all the amazing things, but the practice of being present. You're on your mat right now doing this. Try not to think about your shopping list, your chores, work, social life. And that's very difficult for all of us. For you, you've been practicing for a long time. Like I've said, I've been practicing for a long time. Still, every time I'm on my yoga mat, I get distracted and go somewhere else. If it's a great day, maybe only for a few seconds. If it's not a great day, maybe the whole time I'm thinking about something else.
Yep.
I'm just going through the motions. And early on in my yoga career, I guess if you call it that, I don't know, did people say that? I just did. That someone said a great thing, and I've heard it many times since. I've heard you say it too, is the yoga mat's really a mirror of your life, right? Like, you're no different on that mat than you are elsewhere. So if you're tight and tense and distracted and anxious on your yoga mat, that's showing you what you're doing that you're not aware of in the rest of your life. And it gives you the chance to practice that staying present and letting that stuff go and just being here right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which, for me is a huge thing. I wrote a whole golf book basically about that, right? Just hit one shot at a time. And everybody hears people talk about golf like that. By the way, it's Zilosophy on Golf, available on Amazon. Shameless plug. But, it's hard to do that. So I wrote a whole book about it, about how do you actually do that? How do you hit one shot?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole origin of the physical asana poses, is to help prepare your body to sit still, to meditate.
Right.
If you really look at what were the origins, it was, ancient yogis years ago looking to find ways to be comfortable to sit cross-legged for a long time. And you need to loosen and stretch your bodies. And then, of course, it evolved. But, the asana, the physical practice, is just the prelude to the meditative practice.
Right, which is why you end in corpse pose, right? So you actually, that reminds me of something that's sort of unique about you as a studio owner. You're really into the philosophy behind yoga, which, I love because I'm an amateur philosopher myself. And you read lots of books and quotes during class, and you obviously study this stuff. What has that meant to you in your life with your family? You've got a husband and
2 kids, 2 daughters.
2 daughters. How has that helped you in that specific example, or any other example that you want to use? Well,
I definitely think for raising children, learning to notice the pause before you react to what your child might not be doing. I definitely think it's made me a little bit calmer, although you might ask them and they would say, no, it hasn't.
Right. But they don't know what you're capable of.
Exactly. I think that, some of the general tenets too of, especially when there's one sutra 133, which it basically says, have compassion for the people who are downtrodden, be friendly to those who maybe not be so friendly to you, kind of try to approach different types of persons with compassion, friendliness, and joy. And if it doesn't work, just somewhat be indifferent as well, not get so rattled and in the weeds if something isn't really going well with someone. And I think that that's a key philosophy, in a way, of just try to treat people as you would like to be treated. And yes, that's not just yoga. That's probably so many other.
It's a really good point, because again, on your mat, you get exposed for who you really are, right? So how much are you beating yourself up for not doing the pose the way you think you should be doing it? Or how much are you complaining about the way the teacher is today because it doesn't align with where you are. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
again, I've actually gone through several phases of that in different studios and classes where I've started off, I'm not speaking about Artemis, but one specific example, when I was in California, there was outdoor classes. This woman came in that I hadn't been to her class before. She was very different than the other instructors, and I was for 3, 4 classes with her just cranky. I don't like this. I don't know why I keep coming to her class. But I know while I'm doing this that I'm just, okay, I have to go through this to see what this is all about for me. What has
Mm-hmm.
this woman done to me except teach yoga in a different way, right? Like, why is this upsetting me? And so I went through that whole process of self-awareness and like, where else do I do that in my life? And is
Mm-hmm.
that really the best way to get through a class? Is that the best way to get through a meeting? To be resistant on what the other person is saying. And then in that specific instance that I'm thinking of, ended up loving that teacher and the way she taught because I got all the way past my own crap.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Just how, yeah, it kind of teaches you to be a little bit adaptable and, to take that step back and say, oh, well, this is a different approach, but what can I learn from it? There must be a reason that they're doing the pose this way.
That's it. And then sometimes, there's, again, in 20 years, I've had some teachers that I just didn't particularly care for their style, and I didn't go back to their classes.
It's
And
like restaurants, you know?
right, right. And that's okay. Everybody's got a different version. I mean, that's the cool thing. And one of the cool philosophical things I like about yoga is it really shows us how different we are, but how the same we are, right? We're all in the class, we're all doing some version of the pose. But in no instance is that version the exact same because each of us has a different physical body. We're not
Mm-hmm.
capable of the same things. Like who is it? Annie, the
Yeah.
ballet. She's what, in her 70s, an ex-ballet dancer, and man, she could do some things that I could practice for 100 years and probably never do, right? But I think that that's a really cool lesson, right? And that's why I love yoga. Is it can really be just an exercise. You can go to a super hot yoga and just sweat and get out of there. Or you can, really be a lot more philosophical about it. And regardless of what version you choose, there's going to be things that come up that teach you self-awareness,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right? I mean, you
absolutely.
and I have talked about I don't necessarily prefer hot yoga or Bikram style, but I happened to meet a yoga instructor the other day here. She teaches that style and she wants me to teach her how to play golf. And I was like, yeah, I'll come to your class because again, it's an opportunity for me to get over whatever I have about that style. I do enjoy it from time to time. I don't enjoy it all the time. And I don't think that part's going to change, but I like putting myself into different situations where I'm not necessarily comfortable so that I can see what comes up for me and what I might be able to overcome in that discomfort.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me with the kids too is I've been able to teach them some of the breathing techniques, some of the mindfulness to when, kids, especially adolescents and high school kids, they do have a lot of stress,
Yeah.
with, tests and sort of in our society. And so teaching them that they don't need to react so quickly, that there are some techniques that they can do if they feel themselves getting anxious, and that definitely has been something I've brought home.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. I mean, Greta, who works at your front desk, teaches in schools in Watertown. And there's some other people, I've heard of some programs where in schools, instead of detention, they make the kids go to a yoga class or a meditation class. It's great. Just sit there and be quiet. Don't do anything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to talk and you can listen or not listen, right?
Yep.
And I think that, to me, I've always been a very forward thinking person. So to me, it's crazy that that's not more prevalent already in schools, especially with athletic programs where you don't just get the benefit of the mental calm when you're competing, but also the added benefit of strengthening all your small ligaments and twitch muscles and all that stuff that you don't necessarily get to with other exercises.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, if I was running a high school, I would athletic department, I would try and make it mandatory that there has to be a yoga class at least once a week. If you play sports, you have to go to one, if
Yeah.
not three, right?
Right. I think we're seeing some of that.
Yeah.
We are seeing more and more, but it's not as sort of mandatory as
No.
perhaps we'd
It's
like.
also, I'll give you another example. Like 9 years ago, a business partner of mine and I were telling record labels specifically, but other corporations too, what are you doing spending all this money on overhead? You're burning money. And of course, we were way too forward thinking for them at that time. Nobody wanted to listen. And it was in the context of other conversations, but that was a key point. And of course, now what just happened? All of those giant corporations had to shut down. They've got this big overhead bill that they still have to pay, and they had to lay off more people to cover that overhead. So it's like, if you were paying attention, and I don't know if it's just who I am or yoga or other self-awareness things that I've done, but I saw that coming. Like, this is going to be bad for big companies when they realize how much money they waste, and not realizing that by trying to control your employees and be in one center, you're not giving them autonomy. Maybe they'd be happier working from home and they'd be more efficient, and they'd actually add to the bottom line while saving you money on overhead.
Yeah. It would probably decrease some housing costs too, because people could have longer distances away from their work.
Exactly. And so that's a good point to transition to your prior career. You were in tech in Silicon Valley, right in the heart of the beast.
Yeah. In the early 90s, I worked in downtown San Francisco, and also then I worked down by Foster City, San Mateo area, South Bay, and worked for a technology company that definitely, shot the moon and then fell crashing down. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, it was the Wild West. I caught the end of that initial wave and collapse in the late 90s at carsdirect.com. But what drew you to that? What did you learn from working in that environment, and what ultimately made you say, you know what, I'm going to do something else?
Well, I'm originally from the Boston area and was just dying to leave the Boston area after graduating Boston College. So ended up ski bumming for 2 years in Colorado, and then said, okay, that's not going to make a living. So I moved to California and worked in telecommunications for a while in San Francisco, added in an MBA down from UCLA, and then kind of started at this software company. And it was really a ton of fun, a lot of really hardworking people. One of the interesting things back then was in California, nobody cares where you went to college. That might have changed now, but nobody really cared. So it was really show me what you can do and how hard can you work. And I thank God we didn't have the 24/7 Wi-Fi, but we certainly had,
Right.
all the dial-up internet, and you're trying to get the job done. But I was on planes and, going all across to different trade shows and that sort of thing. And I guess I just felt at the end of the day very disconnected from my kind of customer in a way, and always had been practicing yoga. And then fast forward, my husband and I moved back to the East Coast, and I continued with the yoga practice, had a couple kids, and just really tried to dial back the work in a sense. But yet I always felt I had this desire to be my own boss. And so having that business background, having that sales and marketing background and MBA, I just started working on a business plan and sort of married those skill sets and opened up Artemis Yoga along the way, getting teaching certificates.
Yeah. So it was really just the desire to get back to doing something, but really didn't want to go back to doing what you were doing and wanted to do your own thing.
Yeah, I always wanted to be my own boss. I always had studied entrepreneurship and really was kind of interested in that. And then my mom was a physical therapist and had a different type of job satisfaction. And when she passed away, I can't even tell you how many people told me that she helped them, that she got them back on their feet. She got them back, driving, got back to independent living. And it was just kind of always a different job satisfaction. And while I enjoyed the task of what I was doing in product marketing, at the end of the day, I didn't really feel that connected with my work. And whereas the yoga, you really connect with the people, you hear people's stories, and you can make a bit more of a tangible difference. And so that was ultimately why I kind of pivoted.
It's amazing. I mean, as you know, we've had this discussion before. I had the same type of moment in my life where I just thought, I'm just not doing enough for other people. I'm living this life that's, trying to be fulfilling to me in my career. And I don't have a family. I was married and divorced and no kids. So I didn't have that component of it, but it still was the same thing where, especially for me, because I didn't have that, where I didn't have people around that I was accountable to all the time, right? So I needed that. And through that journey have learned, amazing things about how personally beneficial it is when you give to others, when you do things for other people. The Dalai Lama calls it wise selfishness, because the more you do for others, the better it is for you. And there is some selfishness in that, and that kind of selfishness is okay, as opposed to what we think of, which is manipulation and trying to create a situation to your own benefit. This is trying to create for other people's benefits. And actually, I'm going to pull up here. I just did the Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation challenge on abundance from the Chopra Center. And I'm going to give away the punchline because it doesn't matter. It's still worth doing. But just 21 days of meditating and doing a certain practice every day. But then at the end, these are the 7 switches of happiness that he lists. Give to your neighbor, transmit love and light, let go of things that do not serve you, indulge, by meaning live life to the fullest, not meaning be a hedonist, give thanks, give yourself, be of service, and forgive. So there's a lot of giving in there, right? And the reason when you said that, it made me think of that you had that moment of, my mom did all this stuff for all these other people. Maybe there's things I could do for people that I have been holding myself back from doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, I always wanted to kind of still be working with other people too. So, opening a yoga center where you have other fellow teachers and you have staff people, I think Barack Obama said the other day in his high school commencement address, if you want to go do great things, you need a community to help do it. It's something like that, that you're not going to do it alone. And,
Which is awesome, because we're sort of taught through society that we're supposed to be strong and tough and be able to be a go-getter and do it ourselves. But that's not real. It doesn't work that way. Even the former president of the United States is saying that. Hey, I would never done this if it was just me. He had his family, he had his community. And again, whatever you think or don't think of him, it's not the point. The point is,
right, exactly.
what he said is really important, that we all need that. I could have never done what I'm doing without my community. You could never do what you're now doing without your community.
Yep, absolutely.
And
when I first opened up in Watertown, my grandparents are from Watertown, but I didn't know a lot of local people. And one of my brother's friends, my brother who went to Providence, one of my brother's friends was a former town councilor here. And he took me all around town, literally one afternoon. He drove me all around to these different places and businesses and introduced me to folks. And, it was just great, It's
a great town like that. And I've had several people from Watertown on the podcast now, because I grew up there, and I think it's really such a cool town in that way. It's so small and old school and close knit, but also at the same time, it is growing and changing, and it is a very welcoming place.
Well, it's a town of immigrants too, so it's generally has that in its nature to be welcoming.
Yeah, well, we grew up You were either Irish, Italian, or Armenian, or some Greek sprinkled in there too. And that was it. And those were the days where, of course, we all hung out together and played together and whatever, but we also, it was part of the deal to tease each other about our different ethnicities. And to see, again, to see part of the old school part of the close knit, we stand for each other, we'll protect each other, combined with a little bit more progressiveness and advancement, is really cool to see. I mean, growing up, we were never thought there'd be a yoga studio there.
Yep.
There'd be a bowling alley there.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have a lot of local folks in here every day.
And obviously, it's a great location. You're right on Auburn Street. You're right on the edge of Cambridge. Got a giant population very close to your studio. So I certainly hope that they come running back when you're able to reopen.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, based on the governors, I know there's no real sort of a moving guideline. Do you have any thoughts on where you think
Well, I
that
think
case scenario might be when you might open?
Yeah, I mean, I think technically we're in phase 3, which is the end of June. So,
casinos? I would think you guys would be a little bit ahead of casinos.
I don't know. Yeah, phase 3, gyms and fitness and that sort of thing. So we'll just have to keep watching that. But I mean, we'll reopen and figure out what's the best plan, whether we have a hybrid situation where we do some Zoom classes in parallel with in-studio classes. But
that makes sense for sure, at least to start. And maybe that, who knows, maybe there'll be a demand for that, so you keep it going always. But again,
yeah, and I'm sort of glad not to be in the first phase, to be honest.
Yeah, you don't want to be. I was saying to some friends the other night, because I'm in Florida, and Florida's starting to reopen, and I support that because the first wave never really hit here, right? And we think that maybe it has to do with the sun and the warm weather and all that. So let's see what happens. So now gyms are open to 50%. Restaurants are probably going to open to 50%. And I use the analogy, it's like storming the castle, right? We retreated before, and I think that was the right move. And we should have stopped and see how this is going to play out. So we think we have some information on how we might be able to move forward, understanding we're always going to have to adjust. But when you reopen, there are going to be those maniacs who just go charging at the castle. And usually, as in that analogy, the front line usually gets wiped out. So you don't want to necessarily go running too fast towards the castle. I don't know if that. I think,
Yeah, so we'll see.
But I think that definitely, within the next 4 to 6 weeks, it'd be great to see you guys open. At least on partial, like you were doing before you closed. I mean, there were very spread out classes, and they were still good. You could still come there. And of course, I'm saying this selfishly because I'll be back in about 5 or 6 weeks. So.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, I think if I've understood it right, we're phase 3, which I think at a short term would be 6 weeks.
Yeah, and everything, as we know, is still day to day. And I haven't done a podcast in like a week and a half. It feels like a month. I mean, it's just like the days now feel like weeks feel like months. It's a very strange time, which again brings us back to why it's good to practice yoga and meditation and stay present and calm during the storm.
I was listening the other day. One of the teachers here, Rahel, is doing a program called Virtual Coffee for confined yogis, and she's doing one every 2 weeks or so, interviewing prominent yogis from around the world. And this past Sunday, she interviewed a well-known teacher, Patricia Walden, and she gave some advice of having the rituals in your day, and your yoga class could be one of those good rituals, where it's also having that structure and feeling a sense of normalcy by attending a yoga class with familiar faces and a familiar teacher, I think calms people down a bit.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. It's a completely different thing than doing a recorded class, which is a nice way to get a workout in if you're pressed for time. Doing one of those YouTube classes, I've done it hundreds of times probably, but it's not the same as even on the one class I did with you guys of seeing the other people there and them teasing me because it was freezing there and it was hot and sunny here and I'm on the lanai. And again, it's like, you know, how do you stay connected when you can't be near each other?
Yeah.
And
I
so
think they said telephone calls have been through the roof compared to what it used to be. People were so quick to text and not talk live, but now they're just saying that the phone calls have increased.
yeah, well, that makes sense. Although I still have a lot of younger friends that when you call them, they never answer. So I just follow up with the text instead of leaving a voicemail. But no, I think that, again, Zoom like this has meant a lot to me during this time. I've had family meetings. I think, you know, I'm a Mason up in Lexington. We haven't been able to meet, but we've been able to stay in touch over Zoom. And like you said, we've now seen brothers that don't live in the state anymore. We never get to see. One guy's all the way in Alaska. Never met him. Got to meet him finally over Zoom. Been playing online poker and Zooming with friends to talk smack and feel normal, even though we're
Yep.
not sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
Also because I was doing the Deepak Chopra abundance thing, I've happened to win a lot of money on online poker with my friends over this time. So that's been a very nice silver lining bonus. I think that'll be part of, I always thought my next two books would be Zilosophy on yoga and Zilosophy on poker. And I think that this pandemic has only solidified both of those ideas in my head and my practice, because now I have so much more to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so you're trying out a lot of different things. I mean, some students have said that too. Like we have, you know, a couple different classes, you know, that we've been putting up, and people are attending things that they hadn't used to been able to attend. You know, maybe their work schedule or their commute, and they couldn't attend.
Right.
And so now I've gotten some nice notes, people saying, oh, I never tried that fall class with Natalie. Oh, that's really great. Oh, I never tried Jules's class. And now they're able to.
By the way, people out there, be careful of that exercise ball, massage ball class with Natalie. It's tough. That little, it's like this big, and you get it on your hips, and you release a lot of stuff that's in there. So it's very good, but you definitely want to be prepared for that.
Yeah, those have become very popular. And
Oh, I bet, because people are so tense and so much stuff stuck inside us.
yeah. Yeah.
What other, have any other newer classes that you introduced during this time, or has it all been pretty much?
We did a pranayama class, 4-week series, and then we took a hiatus for 2 weeks, and then Mary's going to resume that. That's Wednesdays at 7:30. So we did that. We've done a couple specialty workshops. Alex did one on the Buddha. He's a Buddhist, so he did one of those. I think he's going to revisit that. What else? We've done some kids classes, a bedtime yoga, and some kids classes in the morning that we don't normally have. So those have been pretty popular.
Have you had feedback from the parents on that about how it's been helpful to the kids to sort of burn off some energy?
Yeah, absolutely. And having, you know, just sort of that familiar face. Many of the kids know Tracy, and having, you know, Miss Tracy online, that's been kind of fun for them. Many of our corporate clients still kept their classes, but online.
Oh, nice.
As a online bonus, so that one of the biotech companies told me that they wanted to make sure people took a break during the day. So they were very happy to continue with the yoga online.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing stuff like that when big companies actually get it. That
Yeah.
employees will be better if they're calmer and saner and, you know, I don't know, whatever, if they not overworked, right? Like there's a real benefit of that to the company, to the bottom line of the company, to give your people a break, and a really good one like that too.
Yeah, we've done a couple private classes for sports teams, athletic teams, as another way for the team to have camaraderie when they can't practice outside.
You should remind me afterwards or send me an email after this, but I should connect you with my brother who works for a giant tech company in Boston. And of course they're doing a family, they do a family party every year. So they're doing it on Zoom this year, and all the families are going to be on Zoom. I have no idea how that's going to work, but it'll be interesting. But they would be a perfect target for some online yoga classes if they're not doing it already, which they may be.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy to connect you. I think that that's really cool. I mean, to me, that, you talked about silver lining at the beginning, and there are a lot of people that say there's no silver lining to this. That's not realistic, and that's not life. Things are going to go wrong. Things are going to happen in ways we wish they didn't, but we have to deal with them the best that we can. And within that, there are some benefits. And one of them is that we're all being forced to think about things in different ways, and think about connecting with each other in different ways, and think about taking breaks from work in a different way, because now
Yeah.
you're not used to working from home like I am for 14 years. And I remember when I first started, I would sit there for 10 hours, not even get up and go to the refrigerator, which was 3 feet from me. I would just sit there and bang out work. And then I realized this is ridiculous. And after a few years, I started either taking a break to go to a yoga class. This is when I lived in the Hollywood Hills, so they had outdoor classes at Runyon Canyon. Or in the hills, I would just stop and go walk the hills for an hour and do a street hike, get some exercise, clear my head, and then
Yeah. You have to build it in. You have to build it in for sure.
I think that that's a good point, that a lot of people are now being forced to work from home, which is great, but they don't know how to take care of themselves necessarily in doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've had more teachers attending the staff meetings because we're doing them on Zoom than, when we're having it in person here.
Right.
I think next winter, if we have a snow day, we're going to go online. We're not going to cancel class.
Right. And how about moving forward for your staff meetings? Oh, you can't make it? All right, well, we're going to do some in person, whoever can come, and the rest will be on Zoom.
Yeah, I think we'll absolutely do that. But I think now everyone has that, oh, it's easy. And even on Sunday, when Zoom had a little hiccup, we pivoted. In one of our classes, we did it on Google Meet.
Oh, wow.
Checking out a new platform. And the majority of the students pivoted right over. Like, people are more nimble now.
Yeah, definitely. And that's been a giant benefit of, we all get stuck in our comfort zones and our routines. And even this podcast, right? I was never doing anything on video. It was always just audio. Because I had something in my head about, well, whatever, that's a whole other thing. Not ever realizing that this was always here. And I could have always been doing this and how about I don't have to go meet in person with the guests now? I can have a guest from anywhere in the world on the podcast. I mean, and it's just not something that I was thinking about. So to say that there's no silver lining, I mean, that's an incredible benefit to me about what I'm trying to do in the platform and the community I'm trying to build.
Yeah,
And it is
absolutely.
to you. I mean,
I feel so fortunate that we are able to offer services online. There's so many small businesses, they don't have that type of product in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, what if you were able to put a camera or two in each studio, and you have live classes, plus people could also sign in via Zoom, so that now you're not restricted to 25 people in that one room, and the people who can't make it in time aren't out of luck that they don't get to go to their class that day. And now you've got 40 people, but 15 of them are just at home.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that you would have never thought of 2 months ago, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely opened some new opportunities for all of us. So yeah.
And I think that, again, to me, I've said this on all the podcasts I've done, but I'm going to keep saying it. So you haven't heard it yet, so it'll be fresh for you. But I think the major benefit of all of this, the major silver lining, is that it's an opportunity for us to realize how connected we are, and that the things that we do and say affect everybody ultimately. And maybe we should take more responsibility for the things that we do and say, so that we can maybe one day build the world that we claim to want. Right? And to me, that was the first thing that hit me, is like, well, we can't say that we're not connected anymore, because this just proved that wrong. Right? And it breaks my heart to watch the country divide more over this instead of heading in the other direction. Hopefully that tide will recede and come back the other way, and we'll realize that we're in this together.
Yeah,
We can stand together, or we can fall apart.
absolutely. Yep.
Um, and yoga is a great place to do that, to stand together, to bend together, to
Yep.
stretch.
Yoga's union, right?
Wait, there's no yoga union, right? So what's next? Where are you? We're getting close to an hour. See, I told you it went fast. Are you obviously you're just still day by day and building the online thing and just building a backup plan to reopen?
Building a backup plan to reopen, and what does that look like? And you know, keeping a real eye on that, just to make sure that whatever we do is everyone feels comfortable, and that if people can't come in the studio, that they still have an opportunity to continue to practice. And you know, life is long. We will be open. You know, things will get back to normal, and we'll look back on this and say, remember when?
I don't know if you noticed yet, but I have my yoga mat right here behind me, ready and waiting.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to go to a class in person in Florida this week.
Oh, good.
And like I said, I'm not necessarily one of those people that wants to be on the front line charging the castle, but at the same time, you know, Florida's an interesting case. The first wave never really hit, and we should see what happens when you reopen like this, if it works, right? So
Well, send me tips.
yeah, no, I mean, that's really what I'm getting to, is I've been out to a couple restaurants. I'm going to go to a yoga class. I want to see how this works. And I also want to support the economy of reopening, because we all know that we can't do this forever like this. We have to find a way back towards whatever the new normal is at some point.
Absolutely.
We have to be careful about it, of course, especially in Boston, where it's been very severe and very serious, right in Watertown. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of cases in that little town, thousands
Yep.
even. So I get it, the seriousness of it, but there's also a seriousness into us going too far in the direction of just close everything and stay closed and we'll figure it out. Like we can go too far in that direction. So I will definitely be reporting back to you about what goes on at these yoga studios and what's happening at the restaurants as they start to move back towards normal. I mean, someone's got to try it. Why not Florida?
Yep. Absolutely.
They're pretty progressive in that way of just going for it.
I mean, I'm sort of looking forward to the challenge of what's it going to be like to reopen. You know, I kind of get jazzed up for something new.
Yeah, same. I mean, at first this really knocked me for a loop, because as you know, I had built my business mostly to run on live talks. And I was about to start really getting into that in schools and doing some major things. And then I just had to, just like you, okay, that's not going to work. It might again at some point that way, but not for a while.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? All right, I can do online podcasts. I can make videos. I've made these funny educational videos for kids using Old School Bobby and a new character that I have, Willa Fail, who's a Southern or a redneck entrepreneur. Or a countrypreneur, I think is what I call them. So, you know, again, there's opportunities there. And like you, I'm built in that way. Once I figure something out and it's running, I get bored real fast. I'm on to, okay, what are we going to do now?
Yep.
So it sounds like you're that way too. And you're looking forward to figuring out the challenge of how do you move back towards a new normal and do it safely and responsibly.
Yep. Absolutely. And we'll hopefully see you and your mom back here soon on your mats.
You will. As I told you off air, I will be driving her and my dad back north. They don't feel comfortable flying. So we're going to do a great silver lining, a road trip through the East Coast with my parents, which is something we would have never done and probably never do. But my dad's always wanted to see some Civil War sites. So we're going to do that on the way home.
Awesome.
like you said, life goes on and we'll figure out a way. So thank you for
You're welcome.
building the community that you've built. Thank you for pivoting and figuring out how to keep that community going. I know that it's meant a lot to so many people, and even to me in that one little brief flash that I had, it did mean a lot to see everybody and go, oh my gosh, I have something to look forward to, of these people that I get to see again one day. I'm not sure when, but hopefully sooner
Yeah,
than.
for sure.
So
Well, we miss you up here. We miss seeing you. And
I miss being there, and I will be back soon, and hopefully things will go well. So we'll end there, but you stay on so we say a proper goodbye off air. So just hang on with me. Thanks again for being on.
thank you, Michael, for having me. I look forward to listening to it.
Maybe it's not too late. Maybe you could make my world a brighter place.
That's it. Episode 40, the big 4-0. Is that backwards on the screen? I don't know. Anyway, episode 40 in the books. Thank you, Liz Padula, for a great conversation. She's always so fun to talk to. We ended up talking for like another 20, 30 minutes afterwards offline. I should have just kept recording, but you'll have to get that stuff another time. Anyway, thank you for listening. Please support Zilosophy. You can go to the GoFundMe, Zilosophy, free Zilosophy content, rather, for heroes, kids, and families. You can subscribe to the Zilosophy YouTube channel and the Zilosophy podcast on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. But 98% of you are listening on Apple or Spotify, so I don't think it's worth mentioning anybody else. The book is Zilosophy on Golf. It's available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. If you're a big golf fan and you missed the last few episodes, had some great golf episodes with Jason Gore, former classmate of mine at Pepperdine, former tour player, now head of player relations for the USGA. Got Todd Ohlmeyer, his classmate and teammate on the '97 National Championship team, talking about his new business and the modern landscape of college golf. And we got pro kids in San Diego. We had a group discussion a few weeks ago. That was great. So go back and check that stuff out if you haven't heard it. Thank you for listening. Thanks for your support. I'm Z. This is I can't even say it. This is the Zilosophy podcast. I'm Z, and you're welcome.